This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Dennis Welch for the first time. I want to welcome you to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate you.
Well, we love to talk to musicians. We started back in 2016 as a exclusive podcast for independent emerging artists, and that's where we started. We got about 1,200 episodes since then, and we're out in the world doing these live podcasts as our jam. But we want to thank you for being on the show. And before we get to the heart of the interview, I ask every guest a couple questions. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
Well, excellence motivates me. And if are you a songwriter, Keith?
Yeah, I write my own music. Yep.
Okay, so you know what I'm getting ready to say. There's a compulsion that songwriters have. There's a motor that runs all the time, man. And I've written 600 or 700 songs through the years, and you know what? The most exciting song that I'm writing is the next one.
Yeah.
Right. And so, it's hard to explain to other people, when people are, watching Dancing with the Stars and stuff. I'm in a room parsing one sentence and one word, and like, how do you rhyme these? And does that make sense? And all that, you know how it is. So I'm preaching to the choir here. So, so that is it's hard. I heard Bruce Springsteen say one time in an AARP interview, of all things, he opened it with, I have kind of a weird job. I go into a room and I make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Right. And that's exactly. So that's the compulsion, is that, there's a song flying around in the air and I'm supposed to write it. So that's what drives me, really. And what was your second question?
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of the same thing. It's like what motivates you and why you do it, why you do what you do, but it's the same idea.
Well, look, and it's one of the things you have to know is you have to know who you really are. And, and I've been a word guy since, before I started elementary school. I could read and spell and everything. They wanted to start me in the third grade, and they did me this huge favor. And it really established, even at that young age, what I am, who I am. So they wanted to start me in the third grade, and my mother, they tested me and they did all this stuff. And little inner city elementary school in Houston. And so my mother said, no. She said, no, don't start him in the third grade because he already likes sports and he's going to be playing against kids bigger than him. He's not going to like that. So let's just figure out something. And so here's what happened, Keith, is that, and I don't know if this could happen today or not, but I went in and my mom took me in to meet the principal, Miss McRee. I still remember her name because of this moment. And so I sat across the desk from her, and I was 5 or something. And she handed me a book and she said, read this. And I said, okay. So I did what they told me to do. I read it. And then she said, okay, close the book now. Tell me what you read. And I told her what I read. And she looked at my mother and she said, he does not need to be in a reading circle at all. He's already reading at a high level. So let's figure this out. So on the first day of class, I'm sitting in my little elementary school, my first few days of school, right? And you're trying to figure it out. In comes Ms. McRee, the principal, and calls my name. So I already think I'm in trouble, right? And she says, Dennis, come with me. And so we step out in the hallway, and I do remember this. She held my hand, and we walked down to the library. And I'd never been in a library in my life. Maybe there was one at my church, but, and we walked in and we walked to the far wall, and there were all these kids' books there, like Cat in the Hat and all that stuff. And she said, now, when everybody else gets in a reading circle, you should quietly excuse yourself and come down here. And she said, and so let me tell you what's down here. All of these are for kids from the first to the third grade. You can read any of these books you want. You can just sit and read, okay? Mm-hmm. And she turned around. She was still holding my hand. And we were in like the northwest corner, I guess, of the room. And all of these other shelves of books were there. And she said, or you can read any of these books. And so can you imagine what that did for me, man?
Yeah, it opened up your world. Yeah.
Opened up my world. And so, when I read things like, Charlotte's Web, I cried. I'm like, you can do that with words?
Yeah, that's
so,
a classic, like, Trumpeter Swans and,
Of course. And you know what? And so that's what happened. And then, but look, I didn't play an instrument and I didn't know that I was going to be a songwriter. I knew that I loved words, but I wrote my first song driving home from a date, and I didn't know what was happening. I mean, I was driving home and I'm singing this song that's just coming in out of the air, right?
Yeah.
And so the next day I went to my job, and it just and look, if there's a theme here, it is that the people that I've needed in the last almost 70 years of my life now, I'm 69 years old. You know what? They show up at the right time. And it makes me not believe in accidents, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's another conversation. Yeah. So I go into the office and I'm selling furniture and stuff and, trying to make some gas money and stuff. I was probably 17 maybe. And my boss always kept his Ovation guitar, acoustic guitar, under his desk. And as the day wore on, he got tired of hearing me sing this song, probably because I didn't have a place to record it. You didn't have phones back then.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you didn't have it.
So he goes, "What is that you're singing?" And I said, "Oh, that's crazy, man." I said, "It's a song I wrote driving home last night from a date." And he said, "Well, let's try to play it." And he took his acoustic guitar out and he started playing this song, and we sang it together. And he goes, "Dennis, this is a real song. This has a chorus, it has verses, it has a bridge. And you know what? You should go buy a guitar, a cheap one, and you should try to learn this stuff. And then if you don't want to do it, you can give it away because it's cheap." And he did not know what he was saying. And so 700 songs later, now 7 albums later, I still can't stop doing it. And I love it. So anyway, so that's a long answer to your question, but that's the compulsion,
Yeah, I think as a writer, it is, I'm a synthesist, I'm a keyboardist, play keyboards and synthesizers and do a lot of sound design on the analog stuff like most. But the idea of creativity is almost like a download from the muse.
Yes.
I always feel like the creative people I've talked to, like filmmakers, actors, painters, musicians, is like that we can channel like what we get from the muse, and it's like a two-way street. There's something in our subconscious. Yeah. There's something coming from the outside. And as an artist, we have the ability to synthesize the inner and the outer.
Yes. And you can
create something brand new.
Yeah, you can hone it, and look, I was not a great songwriter when I started out. I think I've gotten a lot better. But the idea of music and words going together in a song, or even just doing music and being able to create the stuff that John Williams does for film or whoever, it's all very mysterious, man, and I love the mystery of it, to be honest with you. I like that it's mysterious because I think there's something spiritual about it, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's again.
Yeah, I think a lot of it seems to come from, I don't know. I think I have a bedroom studio because I don't know when it's going to come.
Right.
I have all these ways to like track it down. Like, so I would just go and open up a multi-track, sit at my piano and just start, with this mic and just start kind of doing a download from the universe. And I never know if what's going to be good. So I tape everything. I mean, I basically record it all.
That's so
go
smart.
Back and look for the nuggets, and then later I'll kind of arrange it. But I let it kind of be. And I read about Frank Zappa and Neil Young and some of my, heroes. Dylan was famous for just having a typewriter, when he was hanging at Big Pink with the band with Robbie Robertson, and they would have this typewriter and he'd just be rattling off and go downstairs and go with the band. Now, let's try this one. And they go back up and change this and change that.
Yeah,
just in the moment, just creating stuff like out of thin air,
Yeah.
It's just,
well, it's a beautiful thing. And when I've had a chance to write with some great writers. One of my best friends now is a guy named Alan Shamblin, and Alan wrote "I Can't Make You Love Me" for Bonnie Raitt, and
That's a great song.
You name it. And he's a Hall of Fame writer. And when we wrote he and I wrote together. The song was already written, and I had made friends with Alan. He came down. I was in the Austin Songwriter group, and he came down to speak at the Austin Songwriter group. We had our big Songwriter weekend. Well, I was just getting to know these people. I just moved to Austin, and I was like, well, I'll go. I kind of was reluctant, to be honest with you, and I don't know why, but anyway. And so he came and spoke, and we just hit it off, and we just became friends. So anyway, and so as the years went by, I would never ask him. I'm loath to say, hey, you know what, let's write them. I just don't do that.
Yeah.
Because he has a lot of people that want him to do that. And I always said, look, I just want to be your friend,
Yeah.
And so one week, and again, this is another example of this, Keith, that nobody can explain. So this song is called "Worth My Time," and it's a song about really about getting stronger in a bad relationship and being able to say, you know what, this is not working. I probably shouldn't be here. Right. And so anyway, so I had written a version of it and even recorded it on my album in 2000. And so there, I get this little pitch sheet from Nashville, and I'm not really country, so I don't really fit in anywhere. I'm like Americana or something. Right.
Yeah.
But they were looking for songs, and I sent this song to them, and they come back with this big dim the lights email that says, oh my God, this is spectacular. And just a week before, this is the crazy part. I'm driving home from Louisiana with my wife, and Alan Shamblin calls me and says, hey, how can I help you with your songwriting career? And I said, you know what, Alan, I'm the one guy I love you, man. I appreciate you, but I'm the one person that's not going to ask you for anything. So thank you. And I appreciate it. And I tried not to be a smart aleck about it. Right. So 1 week later, this is funny. So 1 week later, I send the song in to these people. They come back and they go, oh my God, this is such a great song. But, we have a couple of comments. One is, we think this could be "I Can't Make You Love Me," but we also think that you're not done writing it yet. There's still some things and changes you need to make to it. Are you willing to do that? So you know what? I said, I'm going to take Alan up on his offer. I forwarded the whole email to him and the song, and it's my current version of it. And I'll never forget this. It was the coolest thing. It was a Sunday afternoon. See, I remember the day and almost the time. So like a week goes by. I don't hear anything at all from him. I'm thinking, what happened? Right. Mm-hmm. He calls me in the afternoon and he goes, hey, Dennis, you got a few minutes? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, you might want to sit down because this is going to take a while. And so I sat down and he goes, first of all, those people are right. And second of all, they're right about you needing to do some more writing, because this is a freaking great song. It's a great idea. And he goes, it's an important song because so many people live with silent abuse, even actual abuse, and they don't walk away when they should. It's dangerous. Mm-hmm. So we got to finish this song. So he said, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This is funny. He goes, so I'm not going to, he goes, if I help you write it, if I co-write it with you, they don't know you. And they'll say, you know what? Dennis sat in the room while Alan Shamblin wrote a song. Mm-hmm. Right? He said, so I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to call you every night at 9:00. And I'm going to hear what you've done on this song today. And I'm going to be your editor. That's what I'm going to be. And he was not kidding. Every night at 9:00, my phone would ring. And after a month or something of our conversations, I really didn't want to hear from him. But so we took 6 months to write that song. And we got to the very last verse. I wrote 50 last verses, Keith, and couldn't do anything with it. And so here was the lesson. So we were in Nashville, and we went out to have lunch with his wife and him at their farm. And I was told Susie, my wife, on the way in, I said, I hope he doesn't even mention the song. I'm kind of tired of fooling with this thing. I mean, I didn't realize what a privilege it was by then. Right. And so anyway, so we finished lunch, and of course he goes, "Hey, why don't you come in my writing room? Let me hear that last verse." Right. So I play it for him, and he goes, "No, that's not it." He goes, "A great song puts you in a trance, and all of your last verses are taking me out of a trance." And I said to him, I said, "I'm not really sure what you're talking about." Okay. I said, but do you write songs like this? We've been working on this for 6 months, and I got sticky notes stuck to my dashboard of verses. And he reached under his writing table, Keith, and he pulled out this stick of yellow legal paper, no technology, all in ballpoint pen and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He pushed it across the table. It was dictionary thick. And he pushed it across the table to me, and he goes, "That is one song I've been working on for 7 years. The House That Built Me," the song that became the song CMA Song of the Decade, he and Tom Douglas worked on it for 7 years. And so anyway, one night we had prayed about it. We cried on the phone one night. We were both up in arms about it. And so finally I call him Deacon. I said, "Deacon, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Do you have any idea what this last verse might be?" He goes, "I probably do." And I said, "Well, is it going to wreck your songwriting career to have your name on a song with a no-name Texas guy?" And he goes, "Well, no. Why do you say that?" I said, "Well, then just write the last verse and put us out of our misery, okay?"
You're done.
Yeah. And so you know what? He goes, "Give me 2 weeks." I was thinking, 2 weeks? Anyway, he left the phone, Keith, and he came back in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And he said, "What about this? Is it worth this pain? Are your words that bruise? Should I be the one you love to use? If I have to ask, then I should know that it's worth my time to let you go." Come on now. And I said, "You wrote that? You thought of that in 5 minutes?" He goes, "Dennis, I do this 8 hours a day." And he goes, "I don't want to pull rank on you or anything." He goes, "My sword is sharper than yours." Okay. And so anyway, so I recorded this when I started this new thing that's going on now, this renaissance that we'll hopefully talk about. You know, I put it on the first record. And so, you know, look, you never know. You're right. You never know when it's coming. You know, and sometimes I've written songs in 20 minutes that I love.
Yeah, well, sometimes they just happen. It's like a download,
Right.
and sometimes they're like, Born to Run took like 6 months.
Yeah, right.
There was like tons and tons of overdubs, and it was like, but Nebraska was like in a small room with a Tascam 4-track.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of depends on whatever serves the song.
Yes.
I'm kind of a mindset is like sometimes some songs take a long time to birth.
Yes.
And sometimes they actually come to you.
Right. Yes. Yes. And you know, Nebraska is an interesting story because you know what? When he made that record, he thought he was doing a demo, and he had the cassette in his pocket, and he was walking around New York City. He went to see his label and stuff, and they heard that, and they said, "That's the record." And he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I better give this to you."
Yeah. I remember I had actually talked to an engineer that worked on the original version of Blood on the Tracks that didn't have all the overdubs.
Wow.
And that one actually is on a bootleg series from archive series. And I always liked it better than the overdub one because it's just him with an acoustic guitar with a bass, no drums, no other instrumentation. And it's like, Tangled Up in Blue and Idiot Wind, they're all done that way.
Oh, wow.
And there's something about it being more like not as produced.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a better, it has different lyrics too. I mean, the lyrics are a little different.
So
and sometimes it just comes out, sometimes the initial demo can be better than the produced song.
Yeah, because you messed it up you spent too much time on it. So did you ever hear Dylan's record, "Oh Mercy," that was produced by Daniel?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. It's my favorite, probably my favorite Dylan record. And you know how he did that? He did it exactly the way you're talking about. He had Dylan sit in the room and do his stuff first, just him. And The Man in the Long Black Coat, what a great song, right?
Yeah.
And he did all that. And then he brought in a cellist and the other people to play on that. So it
On that
started.
original track.
Yeah. Anyway, it's beautiful.
That's
So
a cool way to do things. I mean, you never know how you're gonna birth a song, and that's I always look at it in different ways because sometimes, like, it's just kind of comes to you in the moment, like a present moment. Like I'm
yeah,
very much in like a fusion modal jazz
yes,
mindset. There's a no bad note. There's an opportunity to
yeah,
evolve the song.
right,
It's just a different mindset. But I've spent tons of times overdubbing and creating like very layered, intricate songs
yeah,
that take months to do.
wow,
And but sometimes it's the thing you do just right off the cuff. There's like boom,
right,
that one worked.
yeah, exactly. I love it when it works.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like less trouble.
Yeah, right, exactly. You can
Just
start
cutting
singing
room
it.
floor.
Yeah. Hey, Keith,
But
where are you geographically? Can I ask?
New Hampshire.
Hampshire. Okay. All right. I'm going to
Right.
be singing. I'm doing a series of house concerts, like CD release stuff, which nobody does CDs. I get it. But
Yeah, yeah.
we'll be doing one in New Hampshire, actually.
Oh wow. That's interesting.
We'll talk about that. Go ahead.
But yeah, I think it's just interesting how the creative process goes where collaboration efforts and then efforts that are done like by your single person efforts.
Yes.
Like
Right.
when you have a collaborative effort, like if you're in a band, like when
Yeah.
you're in a band, every member of the band kind of brings to the whole. When you're
Right.
like a singer-songwriter writing something by yourself or with a producer, there's a whole nother vibe. It's just however you've recorded over the years, you kind of know like what like different environments or different
Yeah.
configurations can really change the color of the same song. I mean, you
Yeah.
could have a song done with a band, done without a band, done with a different producer,
Yes.
different recording engineer. It changes like the entire thing.
It totally does. And I'm going to tell you what I've learned in the last 5 years. So when I made an album in 2000 called "Songs from My Window Seat," and that had the other version of "Worth My Time" on it, by the way. But when I finished it, Keith, I came home and told my wife, I said, you know what? I think this record is pretty good, but it's not great. And I'm not going to go in the studio until I have somebody who can help me elevate these songs.
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? And so,
Yeah.
anyway, but I said, but I'm going to continue to write as if I'm going in the studio soon. And so I created, so it was 18 years, man. I was writing, I had all this backlog of songs and everything. And about probably 6 years ago, I sat down on the couch with my wife and I said, you know what? I'm worried because I'm in my mid 60s now and I could die pretty soon. And I said, you know what? All this stuff is in a drawer and nobody's ever going to hear it. They're not even going to know what it is.
You got to put it in the world.
And so here's what happened. So she told me, she said, hey, listen, you have that prayer list that you pray through every morning for an hour. You got everybody else on that list, but you don't have anything for you. And she goes, so why don't you ask God to send you somebody? And there's a novel idea. So I put that on there, and I don't even know what I put, man. I think I might have put something like publishing partner or something. I don't know. So anyway, so we were driving through Nashville 3 months later after 18 years, okay? And we're driving to Nashville. We're sitting in a Mexican restaurant with our friends, Rich Herring, who was at that time had been the lead guitarist for Little River Band for 18 years. And this guy, he's a Georgia farm boy who came to Nashville and became exceptional at everything he did. It's ridiculous. Anyway, and so he's a great drummer too. But anyway, and so we're sitting in this big cavernous restaurant, and he goes, he's sitting right across from me, and he goes, so what are you working on, man? Because I know you're always working on something. And I said, well, I got this new song called Why Not Me that Susie thinks is the best thing I've ever written. He goes, really? He goes, what are you going to do with it? I said, I don't know what to do with it, Rich. I said, I've been 18 years looking for somebody to help me with this. He goes, well, why don't you sing it to me? And I said, right here in the restaurant? He goes, right now, sing it to me a cappella. So I just start singing, there's a mountain wide and high. I just start doing it, And so I felt stupid because there was a nice reverb, by the way, in this place. But anyway, And so I got halfway through, I got a verse and a chorus is all. And he was emotional and he put his hand up and he said, stop. He goes, first of all, Susie's right. I never heard you write anything like that. And he said, second of all, I'm supposed to help you with this. Did you know this?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you mean what? What does that mean? He goes, let me produce this song. And I said, are you going to bring some hotshot Nashville singer in or what? And he goes, no, I want you to sing on it. And that was how this renaissance started, man. And you know what? It was one guy. And so when I bring him songs, now we've done 30 songs. So we did an album called What Love Makes Us Do. And you know what? I joined NARAS and I submitted it to NARAS. And it made the first Grammy ballot in 5 categories. I was shocked.
Wow.
It's some committee inside, and I'm not going to win a Grammy, but some committee inside NARAS said that's good enough for people to vote on, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 years later, we did If I Live to Be 100, and I did the same thing, and it made the same 5 places, right? And so now in a few weeks, July 16th, the 3rd album in our work together comes out. So we've done 30 songs, man. And you know, and the reason we've done 30 songs is exactly what you're talking about, Keith, is that, you know what, there's no boilerplate. You know, he doesn't just go, oh, hey, we used that on the last song, let's use it here. He takes every single song and breaks it down and goes, you know what, I don't think we should do that. I think we should do this. And so far he's batting 1,000. When he sends me these tracks to sing on, I just shake my head. I just go, I can't believe that's what he heard, you know?
That's great when you collaborate with somebody and they actually are in sync with your writing style. You know, you know, that's what I always liked about like Robbie Robertson and Dylan.
Yeah, I love Robbie Robertson.
He was able to interpret, you know, what Dylan was doing.
Yeah,
with
right.
the rest of the guys, you know, Levon Helmet, everybody else, you know, but they were able to kind of have this collaboration with this Americana stuff that I always fall out for anything they did.
And you think about it, Keith, how unusual. We're talking about somebody songwriting style and singing style and everything. Dylan is his own deal.
Yeah, his own deal. Yeah. But when he works with them, it comes out a little different, you know?
Yeah. Right.
It's a totally different, like, fade, you know, shade of like what he does.
Yes.
You know, he kind of is a chameleon in a way. If you listen to Nashville Skyline with Johnny Cash,
right,
that doesn't sound like anything else in the catalog.
Wow,
that's so listen to like Blonde on Blonde is like versus Nashville Skyline versus like you listen to what is it where Joker Man came from. Like he changed. He would, if you listen to him real close, everybody says, oh, his voice, you know, is sometimes like a big factor for some people, whether they like him or not. It actually has a lot of different facets.
Yes.
In the way he can carry him. And it's the way you learn as a singer. It's like your voice is an instrument.
Yes.
And you can make it work, you know, for whatever project you're on. You could actually show up differently from project to project.
Yes, that's right. Listen, Girl from the North Country is one of the most beautiful songs ever. And and I just think when I hear him sing it, I go, God, it gives me chills. But you know, it tickles me that his song To Make You Feel My Love.
Yeah.
That all these people, Garth Brooks and all these people, everybody has sung that song, and you would never know when they sing their smooth, cool version of it that's Bob Dylan, you know.
That's his song, yeah. Well, you know, he wrote for so many bands back in the day, and he still has a lot of people interpreting his work.
Wow.
But like when we look at like the music you sent me in the file, like the first track I have up for people to listen to so I can get a good picture of what you sound like is Strong. So maybe you want to preface that before I play it?
Sure. So Strong was, so we had this record finished, we thought, and we thought we had the title track. There's a song called Relentlessly that we were just sure it was it. But about a month before I went back in to cut the last 3 vocals, I just had this, I don't know what to call it, man, but it was like you're talking about. I had a little piano in here, and I sat down at it, and I thought, you know, for a person who believes that it's all going to be okay and is an optimist. I live a very fearful life. And you know what? I'm tired of it. And so I sat down at my little piano and just what you were talking about, I just started noodling and thinking about it, you know, and that song that you're going to play is what came out of it strong, you know. It's the first two choruses are I want to be that, you know, but the last chorus is I'm gonna be that. And so, you know, I really and then once we cut it and I heard the track, I was like, well, this has to be the title, you know. So anyway,
right. So I'm gonna put us both on mute and play the whole track, and then come back after
all right,
it's
cool.
done. Okay.
Cool.
So that was Strong by Dennis Welch, and I guess we premiered it here as for the first time. But that's a really I love the way that your vocals are.
Thank you. Thank you. That it always bothered me, Keith, that did all these other records and a lot of that stuff got played on the radio and stuff. But I never thought I was a good singer. I always thought I was more. In fact, the first time I went in the studio with Rich, my friend, I said, you know, it makes me nervous to be here singing in this studio with you because I'm not a great technical singer. And he said, Willie Nelson's not a great technical singer, but he's a hell of a storyteller.
Yeah, so I think
go tell me a story. And when he told me that, I'm like, I felt my blood pressure drop, you know. Anyway, thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you.
Well, I think it's great when singer-songwriters, you know, I'm a child of the 70s, and I loved the age of the singer-songwriter because it kind of brought this idea that you don't have to have like Marvin Gaye, you know, Frank Sinatra, That
Yeah.
you can have a Dylan, you can have a Neil Young, you can have, these Joni Mitchell. Not that they're not great singers, but when you have somebody that actually wrote the song,
Hmm.
sing the song,
Yeah.
there's some authenticity about them telling the
Yes.
story that's
Yeah.
different than some guy on Tin Band Alley writing, like Neil Diamond. Not that I won't put him down, but he's writing all these songs for other
Right.
people.
Slide it under the door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
It's something about because like you when you tell the story, people can identify with that, and I think that's why people like singer-songwriters. At least
Well, and I'm about to test that because I sort of stopped playing live for a long time. I would do one gig a year in Houston and we'd sell out the place and have a good time. I'd bring a band in and it was more like a social event, And when all of this started happening 5 years ago and these records started getting out there, well, one of the questions that people, even people in the business, friends in the business would say, "What are you doing? Why are you not singing these songs for people?" And you know what the answer was? I didn't know in the beginning, and but then I realized what the problem was. I'm a control freak, and I hate going into a club somewhere where I got 90 minutes of music, and and the sound guy doesn't know what he's doing, and then you're stuck there so all of that. So what I did was I went out and I said, I went to some of my real musician friends, and I said, "Look, help me. I need some control here." So those speakers, that sound system behind me, that's part of the answer. Because if I can sit in here and tweak and get it exactly where I want, you know what I mean? And so
controlling it. I mean, I'm not that way when I played live, because I'm a synthesist, I actually have like my own kind of pre-mixing board before it goes to the board.
Of course
so
you do.
I can control like everything that I'm getting.
Yeah.
Before it even hits the soundboard. And I'm, because I'm one of these guys that's like controlling like everything. Like I write all the parts. I'm one of these like one person band guys. So like in that way, I'm a control freak. I mean, I have had versions of my band with guitar players and drummers and things, but the current state of the band is just all me.
Right. And I bet even when you had band members, Keith, I bet they were people like I didn't have 100 band members. All those years that I had a band, it was pretty much the same guys, because when somebody came in, just like a producer like this, when they would come in and they would say, "Okay, you've written a new song, let us help you arrange it." Mm-hmm. And then they would play it and it would be, "That's what I heard," right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to get rid of those guys. You want to treat everybody well, but doing it solo has really changed. I think it's made me better. It's made me a better guitar player and all that. But I do miss having, guys you can look at and go, "Okay, I'm going to slow down a little bit now."
Yeah, there's something about I love playing with a real drummer.
Yes. Yes.
So, a lot of times today, people like I have all these drum machines and I wrote all the patterns.
Right.
But I would always prefer to have a real drummer play my stuff.
Yeah.
Than just like use the patterns I wrote. Like, because like a percussionist, a drummer is going to bring something to the table.
Yeah.
That the machines can't do. And so
I would just add this, Keith, that I love playing with a good real drummer.
Yeah, like a real,
because it changes really everything. Our band, we were going to do some recording, like just demo stuff, and a buddy of mine had offered me studio time. This is a long time ago. And there was a band called Galactic Cowboys out of Houston. They were on Geffen Records. And I was friends with all those guys, King's X and all those people. And so my wife worked for the manager and all that. So anyway, we were going to the studio and our drummer got sick and he was pretty good.
Oh, no.
And so I reached out to Alan Doss, the drummer for Galactic Cowboys. And I said, "Alan," I said, "look, I can't pay you because there's no money here anywhere. Okay." I said, "But I sure could use your help." And I said, "Do you want to rehearse with us?" And he goes, "No, I don't think so." He goes, "Let me just come play with you." And this dude walked in, Keith, and he started playing, and that band got better immediately. It was like, oh my God, And so, it was a lesson learned in there. It's like a really great drummer You know, I mean, people talk about Ringo and say, you know what was that all about? But you know what? But he was the perfect guy for
He
them.
was the right guy for the band, you know,
Yeah,
just like every band kind of needs the right guy. Like Ringo's the right guy for the Beatles,
yeah,
Bonham's the right guy for Zeppelin,
that's
Rich
right.
was the right guy for Hendrix. You know, and
Yeah,
this
that's right.
Rich pretty much wrote the songs with Hendrix. That's
Wow,
how important a drummer is. I mean, Jimmy wrote most all those songs with Mitch actually helping in writing them.
wow.
That's how important like drummers are to the structure of a song, you
Of
know.
course, yeah, absolutely. And I would contend that may be part of the reason why my producer, Rich Herring, he's a really fine drummer too, along with being a world-class guitar player. He's even nice looking. It's not fair, but you know, but I would I've never thought about this, Keith, until this second. But it might be that that's part of what some of the magic is, that he's really a drummer and he hears some
Drummers to
rhythmic.
write songs, you know. Drummers are the song, you know. The rhythm section of a song is so important for it
Yeah,
to actually connect with the people. And like, if you
yeah,
get a really good pocket drummer or somebody who knows how to craft, like
yeah.
whatever genre you're in, you get a good blues drummer, you get a good rock drummer, you get a good, you know, reggae, any of the genres. If you get a master, now you get like a Percy Shuffle out of Motown. You get like the really good Motown drummers.
Right.
They knew how to be in the pocket and get that hit out. They knew how to actually make it happen.
Make me feel it.
Yeah, they
Right.
make you feel it in a 2 minute, 3 minutes. They actually do everything so dynamically right. And if you look at the parts, they don't seem like they're hard. But then when you look at what they actually did, a lot of those Motown songs are actually more difficult than they appear to be.
Yeah. You know, I heard this about Billy Joel's music too. I have a friend who's a really fine guitar player, and he went out to Vegas and somehow he got into a Billy Joel tribute band. And he just thought, well, this can't be difficult. You know, don't go changing. Come on. And he said, the stuff that Billy Joel does musically, he goes, it's the most complicated. He said the learning curve was so straight up. It gave me, you know, the bend.
Yeah. That stuff is like, if you listen to that stuff from the 70s, or when you listen to Elton John, Billy Joel,
Yes.
the pop music, I mean, the songs have structure.
Yeah.
They have timing changes. They have, you know, key changes. They have the intro, the outro.
Yes.
You know, the second verse, the third verse. They've got like, they're structured.
Yes.
And they're actually, you know, they're very well written because they're in this pop. When it was kind of like the golden age of like that type of pop music.
Yes.
And people actually put a lot of work into actually making it.
Yeah.
Like not just a hook based song. Like today we get a lot of songs that are, to me, seem like they're all groove hook based songs.
Right. And they don't have a lot of chords in them. They don't have a lot
they don't have any changes like to make it interesting. I always listen to Zeppelin, is like find out, was like, wow, Jimmy Page is actually doing all these really interesting things with his chords.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I always, you know, looking at like the Doors and the Ray Manzarek and on the keyboards, on the electric piano, and the stuff he was doing with his bass line. I'm like, yeah, I was looking at some of the old work from the 60s and 70s, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
The level of craft going on.
Well, think about it, Keith. So there was no auto tune. There was no, you know, you either knew how to play your instrument and sing, or you you didn't go record.
Yeah, you don't do it.
I mean, there's a great video on YouTube somewhere, and it's Frank Sinatra standing in front of a microphone, and Nelson Riddle, the conductor, standing directly next to him so he could see him, like see his mouth move, and a 52-piece orchestra.
Yeah, that's the
and
level.
They're recording this sucker live.
That's how they did
it. and he knew that Frank Sinatra was not gonna be in the pocket. He was gonna sing it the way he felt it, and he would watch him, and then he would do this. He would be directing. It's like
to get the orchestra to match where Frank was.
And if you're a musician in this group, can you imagine making a mistake?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, but the level of work that like people used to have to do is like the craft. Like people don't even realize like what the level, like be able to play at the same level with the dynamics. You know, there's like, because there's people that aren't used to playing live drums in a studio anymore. You know, and actually getting the level right, getting the dynamics right, getting the timing right. You know, it's like that was what you had to do.
Yeah.
You know?
And those drummers back then knew that's what they had to do, and they were prepared to do that. And because it's like studios were costing you $250 an hour or something, $100 an hour, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So,
you
if you're fooling around and they're getting a drum sound for 2 days, that's money out of
money coming out of your advance,
your food budget.
Your advance, you're never gonna get it back.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Right. I just think it's amazing when people actually still write songs. Because your song has the dynamics of what I could call like a classic songwriting.
Oh, thank you. That's
why
man.
I'm always looking for that, like in the indie world of artists. That's where we find, because like what we get today, I don't want to poo-poo my the current generation. My daughter's 25. She listens to the new stuff, but I am somewhat of a purist. Is like, are you a musician or are you a DJ?
Right.
Like there's a difference between a DJ producer versus a guy who actually can play a bass guitar or piano, play sax. Like if you actually know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
There's something different that's happening.
It's interesting. I've had two people recently in the business. One is a film producer, and one is a famous songwriter, who've said to me, the songwriter said one day, we sat and listened to my whole album, and he goes, "Dennis, every single thing on this record could be in a movie. It's so visual, And so I don't know what to make of all that. Keith, I don't know if that's true, but that's cool for somebody to say it, right?
And get your stuff on the sync licensing circuit to get into the movies.
I could go for a sync license, but here's what the film girl said, and she's a longtime friend. She actually, when I did my first album, I didn't know how important album covers were, and it was kind of a gospel record, and it looked like a 5-year-old did it, And so when I did this rock record, which was the next one, Man of Steel, I went to this girl, and I knew that she was probably in the top 5 album artists anywhere. Mm-hmm. And she's remained a family friend since then. And I contend that the record actually sold well because of the cover. I don't think it was because of me. Okay. But anyway, so she's in the film business now. And she said a few weeks ago, she said, we were talking about this. She goes, "Dennis, you know what?" She goes, "Every song you write right now and record could be in a film, but it couldn't be in the body of the film because your music is too emotional and it would distract people from the story. But it certainly could be over the end credits and that kind of stuff." And, when I hear that kind of like mixed message, my takeaway is not that it's too emotional. My takeaway is that's kind of a compliment, isn't it?
Well, yeah. What's a compliment? That you're actually, connecting where you want people to pick up that emotion.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, like the market for that particular type of, marketing your song as a product to work in a film, then they're going to place it where they think it's going to have the right impact for the story, or where they think
it's going to feel right and all that,
Yeah, but that's a whole different like level of art and science, like how they where they decide it should go.
Yeah,
is like a bunch of decisions that are outside. Like you wrote the song, right?
Yeah,
right. And you had this intent with your song. Now, when the world gets your song, they can use it however they want. It's just like if you send it to Madison Avenue,
right,
and it gets in an ad, you might be selling some like a product, a widget, or some food or something. It's like, well, that wasn't what you originally designed the song for.
Yeah,
but they found a way to fit it in. They found a way to fit it in.
Right, exactly. Well, this has been a very interesting discussion, Keith. I've really enjoyed this. Any questions you want to ask me about anything?
So the release date for that album, the song we just played, "Strong."
So "Strong" will be out. It'll be on all the streaming services on July the 16th. And it will be my 7th album.
You still doing CDs?
Yeah, actually am. And you know why? Because when I do these house concerts, first of all, a lot of older people still have them. I just got a new car, and there's no CD players. Okay. But the reason I like it is because I like signing something and giving somebody
for merch table. Yeah, for the merch table, it's really important to either have a CD or vinyl.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about doing vinyl for this record as well, but that will be down the road, so.
Because vinyl, what I liked about the vinyl is that everybody knows is the room for the art.
Yes.
The space for the art on the vinyl. For a CD is cool because you do have more space to not have it. When you have no space for the art in the streaming world, the art is kind of very small.
It's just this.
Yeah. But if you get an album, then you can have liner notes, you can have a little booklet. And when you go to the merch table, you have something that you can sign, you get some diehard fans, and then they, to me, is like the physical CD and vinyl allows the fan to connect with you. Yeah. And then they're more likely to actually listen to everything on there.
Right.
And
that's
then really get the full picture and then maybe recommend you to their friends. Because it's not just going to be a playlist experience, which is going to tend to be very narrow and only get one of your songs out there.
That's right.
Somebody getting into your whole, to me, your album is like telling you the story, like a short story or a novel.
So, you know what, Keith, it's funny because when I talked to my producer about it, I send him, as soon as we finish the 10th song, 10 is my number. And, and he goes, Dennis, nobody cares how many, anymore. I said, yeah, but I do. Because remember, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And so what I do, Keith, is I drive around. I probably drive my wife crazy. But anyway, I drive around and I listen to all of the songs. And you know what happens? It's just like songwriting. After I listen enough, I go, you know what? Strong is the title track. It's first. These three things is second, and I kind of know what the story.
Yeah, you kind of build an album. I mean, the art of the album is like kind of like Sgt. Pepper's, right? The songs are. It's not like a rock opera, but they all kind of fit, right?
Well,
so you kind of have to know what's your narrative for all these songs as an album, right?
Yes, and and here's the thing: is that it's. I'm trying to think of where I was going with that. Anyway, I'll come back to it. Go ahead.
Well, I think the idea, like you listen and trying to figure out which one goes first or which one.
Here's my point. Is that just think about this. So Rod Temperton writes 2 songs on the Thriller record. Okay. And granted, they got on the radio, but let's say they hadn't gotten on the radio. 25 million copies of a record with your song on it. And so, you know what? He got paid the same for the mechanical royalties as the guy who wrote, or the girl or whatever that wrote, Thriller or whatever. So everybody got paid something.
Yeah. That's what
but
you want.
You know what? Right now, if I write a hit song, if I write a great song, and let's say Carrie Underwood says, you know what? I love that song. I'll put it on my record. She puts it on her record, but the way it works, and you know how it works, is that your daughter goes in there and she hears another song of hers on the radio. And guess which song she pulls? She pulls that one out, but she doesn't pull any of the rest of the album out. So I get paid $0 for that. And I'm not doing this for the money. If I was doing that, I would have quit a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a weird system, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I just don't think it's advantageous to art. Like if you think of music as an art.
Yes, that's what I think of it as. Yeah.
When you have the CD, you have vinyl, you had 8 tracks, people got pulled into the narrative of an entire project.
Yes.
And I don't think it's like if you read a book, you only read the liner notes. Like you read not the liner note, but like the cover, the back cover,
right?
The synopsis.
Yes.
That's what people get when they just hear one song from an artist, from an album.
Totally right. Yeah.
The single is not very representative of an entire artist's point of view. So if you get a single, if all you do is listen to a single from a record, you don't get the depth of who that artist is.
No.
And as a kid from the 70s, I am an album-oriented listener.
All right. Yes, you are. I'm sure you
are. If I hear a new artist, I will listen to their whole work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the opposite of what the marketing is today. Is to get people on these playlists and only hear one song.
I would call it shallow, is what I would call it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just shallow. It's like, you don't listen. The first record I ever listened to in my life, because we just didn't have much, and so the guy across the street, a friend of mine, bought Honky Chateau, and he gave me his big giant headphones to listen to it. And Keith, I sat down in my bedroom by myself. My brothers were off doing something, and I put that thing on, and I put the needle down on Honky Chateau. I was so blown away by the sounds, what I heard, where it took me. It was almost like a movie.
Yeah, well, that's how you should embrace it. The problem is that a lot of people embrace music as like a secondary or tertiary activity. They're scrolling on their phone, they're watching their TV,
Yes.
They got their iPad open and watching some TikTok, and maybe listening to a song as like a background soundtrack.
Right.
So they're not really getting immersed in the music because there's so many distractions in this world, and everybody's getting pinged by some smartphone, and or they're playing some video game, and they're not putting the time in to be a good listener. And so I always like recommend somebody should like find a record from a band you don't know, right, and check it out every week. Try to find a band you don't know about and go learn about them.
Well, listen, and here's another thing. It's bad for us, Keith. You know what? If music is healing, and I believe it is, I believe it has the potential to heal us. I mean, just physically and emotionally and everything. You know, there are people. So a few years ago, this one example. So Susie and I lived in Georgia for a little while, and I'm from Texas. And so we have great friends down there. So some of our friends work at a very kind of swanky senior housing and you know, the range of help. Like maybe you need no help, and maybe you need lots of help.
More help, yeah.
So my buddy calls me when I'm down there. He goes, "Hey man, why don't you come sing for our memory care unit?" And so I'm like, "Okay, sure." So I go there. My buddy's has a beautiful harmony voice. It's just gorgeous. And so I was singing all these songs of mine and then mixing in some stuff they knew and all that. Well, I sing I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. And I invited my buddy up to sing with me into heart. I knew what he was going to do. And Keith, there was a woman sitting to the left of me who hadn't spoken in years. And all of a sudden, while we're singing, this distractingly beautiful harmony humming starts. And it was so beautiful that I could hardly finish the song. And afterwards, I asked somebody, one of the people who worked there, I said, how does that happen? And she said, you know what? She said, sometime in her life, she was a singer, and those synapses still fire as if.
Fired. Yeah.
I mean, you know what? And you can't do that if you're scrolling and you're being distracted and everything. I mean, that's just terrible. So can you do something about this?
Well, I'm always trying to get people to really like unplug and plug into music.
Yes,
like unplug from the tech and actually plug back into like music.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, it's jazz, rock, classical, whatever you like. But actually be attentive to the art you're listening to.
Yes.
And the same thing happens with films and stuff today. People are not paying attention. If they're watching TV films, a lot of times they have to watch it over and over because they keep on not actually watching the movie. They're not actually watching the show. It's like, so you get all these replays because you actually did watch it.
So a few years ago, I know we're running out of time here. I did the book publicity for the head of Campbell Soup, the CEO of Campbell Soup, Doug Conan. And in his book, he had this statistic. So this is 12 years ago, Keith. So it's worse now. He said, in the United States, the average knowledge worker is interrupted every 11 minutes by some form of communication. And because it's 11 minutes, we interrupt ourselves twice during those 11 minutes. So it's really every 4 minutes to see if we're being interrupted or not.
Yeah.
And so, you know, my question is, I know you're a creator, you're a creative person. And so how in the world am I supposed to create anything that matters when I don't have any space intellectually or personally to keep from being bothered? Right.
But to me, when I write, I always tell people, and even when I work with other musicians, like turn the cell phone off, like
Yes.
turn the wearable off,
Yes.
and when you do this, don't use your cell phone for your lyrics when you're at the mic,
Right.
right?
Let's here's a
Just
pen.
use the pen, use the paper, right? And try to actually remember them.
Right. It's tactile,
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be looking at the phone to do it, because it's something about when that you're not really into it. You're not
Yeah.
giving your full performance like an actor, you know.
Right.
You're like
Right.
reading from their notes and then when they finally let them go and actually do the performance, you gotta let it go and actually feel it and
Right.
really get into the song. Like
Yes.
you actually
Exactly.
believe in what you're doing,
Yeah.
and like give yourself the permission structure to know that, like, yeah, I'm gonna get it done, but I don't have to have the crutch of
Yep.
the phone in front of me.
So look, Keith, thank you so much for having me on the show. This has been a really joyful hour, just so you know. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, I
And
love talking to musicians.
and when we start heading up to New Hampshire to do this house concert, I don't know, where are you in New Hampshire?
Oh, I'm in Concord, but yeah, the only problem is my wife's in cancer care right now, so we're kind of like,
Oh, sorry.
but I do appreciate it. But we could actually, ping our network and get people into it. But
That would be awesome. And listen, I told you I have my little prayer list, that got me the producer.
yeah.
And there's a lot of people on there dealing with health issues and stuff. So can I just have your wife's first name and put her on there? Do you mind?
Yeah, Cheryl.
Cheryl, I'm going to be praying for your wife and for you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, thank you. Anything else we need to cover here today, or
No, we got it. We got it out there. This will be fully published on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook as soon as I'm out the door.
Right.
It's available immediately on LinkedIn and YouTube. We will have it on all the other platforms like Spotify, video podcast, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and Apple Podcast by tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll get a landing page out to you. But thank you for being on the show tonight. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Keith. Great to meet you, and I hope to get to meet you in person sometime. Okay.
Thank you.
You take care. See ya.